The All-Star break is finally here, and it's time to look at where the Knicks land within the NBA landscape as I break that down and so much more on the Knicks Digest. What's up, guys? It's your boy Dariel, Mr. Queens or Nowhere. Queens get the money. Queens get the money, long time, no cash. New York or nowhere. You guys know the drill. You know the vibes. I'm giving you a video right after I get home from work. The dedication is ridiculous. But now with that W against the Atlanta Hawks in the Garden, now it's time for the All-Star break, and it's time for Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby to get some rest. Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, even though they're going to the Bay for the All-Star game and the All-Star festivities, it's not necessarily a real break because they have a lot of appearances and all that kind of stuff to do. But for the rest of the Knicks, like I said, OG, Mikal Bridges specifically, Josh Hart, let them go to Antigua, let them go to Cancun, rest up their bodies, and get refocused, re-energized for the remaining, 25 to 30 games of the remaining of the season. But now, looking at the standings, the Knicks fall into third place with a record of 36-18, and in their last 10 games, they are 8-2. Talking about the Eastern Conference as a whole, the only two teams that we have ahead of us, we have the Boston Celtics at the 2 seed with a record of 39-16, and they're also 8-2 in their last 10. And the number 1 seed, Cleveland Cavaliers, who have surprised everybody this season with a record of 44-10. So Cleveland, Boston, and New York within the last 10 games, all three of those teams, they have the same record, 8-2. And to dive deeper into the schedules of Cleveland and Boston within the last 10, Cleveland's last 10, the first game was against Houston, and they lost that one. And then it was Detroit where they won. And then it was Miami where they won. And then it was Atlanta where they won. And then it was Dallas where they won. So Detroit, Houston is a tough team. Detroit is a tough team. Miami, you always got to be wary of them. Atlanta, this was before the NBA trade deadline, so DeAndre Hunter was still there. I mean, Jalen Johnson was already out with that shoulder injury, I believe. After that Dallas win, they caught an L against Boston. Then they won against Detroit. They beat Washington. They beat Minnesota. They beat Toronto. So honestly, within their last 10 games, the only 2 games where I see a kind of like easy win would be Washington and Toronto. Every other game that they played and they got that W, they went up against respectable opponents. So the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're definitely a surprise of this season, but it remains to be seen, obviously, if Donovan Mitchell is going to be able to keep up his play in the playoffs. Is he going to revert back to old Donovan Mitchell where he's taking all the shots, where he wants all the possessions? Or is Donovan Mitchell actually going to be able to trust his teammates like he's done this regular season? The Boston Celtics, the number 2 seed, within their last 10 games, we're going to start off against Dallas on January 25th. They won that game. And then the game following that is against Houston where they lost. And then Chicago, they won. New Orleans, they won. Philadelphia, they won. Cleveland, they won. Dallas, they lost. More recently against New York, they won. Monday, February 10th, they won. And San Antonio Wednesday, which is basically today, but by the time you guys watch it, it was yesterday, they won. So I'm looking at Boston's last 10 games. The New Orleans win on January 31st, that was a definite must win. Philadelphia, I mean, I guess you can say it was definitely going to be a win because Philadelphia, they're a nightmare. I don't know what the hell they're doing. The San Antonio Spurs, they won more recently on Wednesday, 116-103. Those are the only 3 games where I'm looking at their schedule and it's like, okay, those are kind of guaranteed wins. But you can make the argument that the Philadelphia 76ers on February 2nd, it wasn't a guaranteed win. So basically, I'm just looking at the strength of schedule for the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics. And both teams, the strength of schedule, they were going up against teams. It wasn't like they were just facing New Orleans Pelicans, Portland Trail Blazers, the Washington Wizards, the San Antonio Spurs. It's not like they were just revolving around those 4 teams. They were going up against respectable opponents. And the Knicks' last 10 games, starting back in January 25th, where we got that W against the Brooklyn Nets, and then it was the Sacramento Kings, and then it was Memphis, and then it was Denver, and then we lost to the Lakers, but we beat Houston, we beat Toronto, we lost to Boston, Indiana, and Atlanta. So everybody's strength of schedule, they had respectable teams that they were going up against within their last 10 games. And now the 2 teams after the New York Knicks, at the number 4 seed, we got 30-23 Indiana Pacers. And their last 10, they are a record of 6-4. So the Indiana Pacers, starting back on January 23rd, they had a back-to-back on January 23rd and January 25th with the San Antonio Spurs. And they split those 2 games. They lost to the San Antonio Spurs on January 23rd, and then on the 25th, they won. And then after San Antonio, they played Detroit, they played Atlanta, and they played Utah. All three of those games, they got W's. They caught an L against Portland. They won against the Clippers. They lost against the Lakers. And then they lost more recently against the New York Knicks on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, which was yesterday by the time you guys watch this video, they beat the Washington Wizards in overtime. So the Indiana Pacers, within their last 10 games, they played the San Antonio Spurs twice. They played Utah once. They played Portland once. And Washington Wizards. So within their last 10 games, five of the games were against teams that, I mean, the San Antonio Spurs, they're better than Portland and Washington and Utah, but they're not that much better than those teams. So the Indiana Pacers, they're very hot and cold. It's hard to get a read of them because they started off the season really bad, and then they went on a nice little run, and then, I don't know, right up until this All-Star break, it looks like the Indiana Pacers, they're just trying to find their rhythm, they're trying to find their feet, and having to go to overtime to beat the Washington Wizards, that's never a great sight. The 5th seed, we got the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Milwaukee Bucks with a record of 29-24. In their last 10 games, they are a record of 4-6. So going to the Milwaukee Bucks, January 27th against Utah, they won. And then it was the next 4 games, Portland, San Antonio, Memphis, and Oklahoma City, they lost. And then Charlotte on February 5th, they won. February 7th against Atlanta, they lost. Philadelphia 76ers, they won. Golden State, they lost. Minnesota, they won. So the Milwaukee Bucks, they're just up and down, man. And it's kind of like the NBA Cup curse, I think. I feel like if you win the NBA Cup, then everything after that, it just seems like you're going to have a rough time in order to get to the postseason. I don't know. The NBA Cup has a curse. Ask the Lakers with Darvin Ham. Now ask Giannis and Coach Doc Rivers. Milwaukee, I don't know what to do with them, man. I can't get a read of them. Dame and Giannis, honestly, it really depends on what they look like in the postseason. Giannis has been hurt the last couple seasons. Dame last season had a really bad calf strain in the playoffs. Giannis' injury was like a week prior to the playoffs. He didn't play in the playoffs. So I don't know. It's really hard to get a read on this Milwaukee Bucks team. But the strength of schedule for Milwaukee, you got Utah, Portland, San Antonio, Charlotte. Out of the 10 games, those are the 4 teams in Philadelphia, which they did win. But you could throw Philadelphia in there because, like I keep saying, Philadelphia is a nightmare with their situation with Joel Embiid, Paul George not being healthy. So out of the 10 games, they had 5 teams where it should have been W's. And they lost against Portland. They lost against San Antonio. Those are the 2 teams that they lost to where they should have got W's. What I'm just looking at the landscape of the Eastern Conference and see where the Knicks lie compared to these other teams. I mean, I like where we at, man. And on top of that, we're getting Mitchell Robinson back. That is going to do wonders for us. And of course, we got to take a look at the trade deadline. We didn't make any moves. Jericho Sims was the only move that we made, getting DeLon Wright for the Milwaukee Bucks. So you could kind of look at it and say that this Knicks front office, that they're very pleased with what they have, and they're confident that when Mitchell Robinson comes back, we're going to have a really good stacked team. We're going to have interior presence. When OG Anunoby comes back healthy, we're going to have presence around the perimeter with also Mikal Bridges. So it's going to be interesting to see what the rest of the NBA schedule and how the Knicks play towards the end of the season after the All-Star break. After the All-Star break, you got to hit the ground running. There can't be any sort of slippage. There can't be any figuring it out. Mikal Bridges really needs to get into gear. And he really needs to find his way within the offense. It can't be this cold, hot game, having donuts for box scores. We're going to need Mikal Bridges to really find his way. Speaking of Mikal Bridges and the other players on the Knicks squad finding their way, of course, I had to give you my 2 cents on the Atlanta Hawks W, where it took us overtime, and Cat had a huge blunder towards the end of the game. But I can't be too hard on him because Cat had a monster game with 44 points, 10 rebounds, 14 of 25 from the floor, 7 of 10 from three-point line, 70% from his three-point line. That's insane. 9 of 11 free throws, dishing out 3 assists, grabbing 2 steals, 47 minutes. Like I keep saying, I am so glad that Cat and Jalen Brunson, they get some sort of rest with this All-Star break because Cat specifically, with all the pounding that he's taking, especially at the 5 spot, him, OG Anunoby, and I think Mikal Bridges, mentally for Mikal Bridges, I think this is going to do wonders for them. But behind Karl Anthony Towns, we got our Cap, Jalen Brunson, 36 points, 13 of 21 from the field, 3 of 7 from three-point line, 7 of 10 from free throws, grabbing 3 rebounds, dishing out 8 assists, 43 minutes. Something that I do want to mention about that Atlanta Hawks game, Dyson Daniels, man. Now, tonight, Jalen Brunson, I think he did a better job just dealing with Dyson Daniels. Dyson Daniels is a incredibly athletic, almost alien-like athletic guard that's being put on Jalen Brunson whenever the Knicks match up with the Atlanta Hawks. And prior to that game-winning bucket that Jalen Brunson had on Dyson Daniels, I was going to come on here and say that Dyson Daniels is kind of like Jalen Brunson's kryptonite. But with a box score of 13 and 21, 3 of 7 from the three-point line, 36 points. 13 to 21 isn't great, but Jalen Brunson, when he needed it most and when we needed it most, he came through in the clutch. But Dyson Daniels, man, this guy, it just seems like he knows how to get into Jalen Brunson's just like jersey and how to irritate him and how to annoy him. But Jalen Brunson, that's why he's our cap. Trae Young came into the league being compared to Steph. Now, that, in my opinion, wasn't fair to Trae Young. And their games are not alike. And I think it's been proven that Trae Young their games are just not alike. But one thing that I saw in tonight's game as a part of the reason why the Atlanta Hawks were able to come back and tie it up, besides Cat's blunder, why are we going under on Trae Young's screens? Trae Young's expertise is shooting the basketball. He doesn't get enough credit for creating plays for others, which I think he does great at. And he actually got called up for the All-Star game. And I think it was not Anthony Davis, Damian Lillard, I think it was. It was somebody in the East where Trae Young replaced. But Trae Young doesn't get enough credit for being able to create plays for others. And prior to this trade deadline where the Atlanta Hawks sent DeAndre Hunter to the Cleveland Cavaliers, I still don't know what that move was about. I don't know what the Atlanta Hawks are doing. And Jalen Johnson is out for the remainder of the season with that shoulder injury. The Hawks are in a weird phase right now with like retooling. But Trae Young doesn't get enough respect for making his teammates better. And I know this is a Knicks Digest channel. We're not huge Trae Young fans. But I wanted to come on here and give him some respect, bro, because Trae Young, the one thing you got to admit by Trae Young is that when the lights are on at the brightest, he will perform. He will come up big. Tonight, having 38 points, 11 of 29 from the field is not great. 4 of 11 from three-point line is not great. 12 of 14 from the free throw line, again, not great. But look at the assists. 19 assists, 38 and 19 in 44 minutes. Now, again, if you look at the box score, 11 of 29, 4 of 11 from three-point, those aren't great. But 1 out of the 4 three-pointers that he hit came in a very timely manner. Like I keep saying, Trae Young, when the moment is at its brightest, I feel like you could depend on Trae Young to come through. Now, I don't want to say 10 times out of 10, but look at what he did to us in the playoffs back in 2021. And then in the same season, going all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, some people might say that's fugazi, but what if Trae Young actually had the right team built around him with the right pieces? I don't know. I just think Trae Young needs to get a little bit more respect. But going back to the Knicks, some of the defensive assignments that we were doing and just the defensive schemes, like going under Trae Young picks is absolutely absurd. We should have a man attached to him at all times. We should be hedging. We should be blitzing. We should be just in his jersey the entire time. That's something that I saw that completely annoyed me. And, of course, there's Mikal Bridges. 11 points, 5 of 8 from the field, 1 of 2 from three-point line, no free throw attempts, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 43 minutes. So, I mean, the thing is, you took 8 shots, bro. I mean, all in all, you took 10 shots. So you took 8 regular field goal attempts and then 2 three-pointers. So you took 10 shots in total. It's kind of hard to gauge, like, that isn't really I can't, looking at that, 10 shots in total, like, I can't really tell how aggressive you were. 2 3-point shots, three-pointers is not your specialty, I understand that. But for 8 field goal attempts, bro, Mikal, like, we need you to get going. Like, we can't have you being, like I said earlier, we can't have you being hot and cold. We need you to have, especially after the All-Star break, we got to hit the ground running. We got to get you more consistent, just box score numbers, man. You need to be anywhere between 18 to like 25 points a night. And then you start getting into the conversation about the amount of first round picks that we gave up to get you. I don't like using that conversation because we gave up those 5 first round picks, but it wasn't for Mikal Bridges to be our number 1 option. Mikal Bridges, we needed him to implement himself within the offense and within the offensive flow. And with the pieces that he has around him, the Brunson, the Cats, the Josh Harts, Like, it should have been a little bit more of a seamless transition. And I get it, things take time, but now that we're getting closer to the playoffs, we really need you to ramp it up, my guy. But that's it for today's video, guys. Let me know what you guys think about the Knicks' effort tonight against the Atlanta Hawks. But also leave it in the comments and let me know what you guys think about where the Knicks are right now in this season, now that we got the All-Star break. And then we're third in the East. We got Indiana Pacers behind us, we got Milwaukee behind us, and we got Boston and Cleveland as the only two Eastern Conference teams ahead of us. Do you like where we are? Do you think we should have ended up a little bit better? Or, like I just said, are you guys calm, cool, and collected with us being the third seed? Leave it in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. But until next time, you guys know the drill. You guys know the vibes. Brunson for all the MVPs. The Deuce is loose for co-MVP. OG Anunoby for a speedy recovery. Hopefully, you're somewhere in Mexico already, bro, just soaking up the vibes on the beach. Taj Gibson for president, and I'm going to take my ass to sleep because I recorded this after coming home from work. Queens forever. Queens get the money. I'm out. Peace.